How is it that some stories can pull you in from the very first scene? A handful of pages, a minute of screen time, and somehow the audience is already feeling a particular emotion or a sense of tension, of curiosity that has them at the edge of their seats. What makes an inciting incident feel like a true point of no return instead of just another event in the plot? How do some first acts feel so layered, substantial, and full of momentum instead of transitional, even when they're still laying the groundwork for the characters, the world, and the conflict that follows? And so, how do you earn the audience's investment at each of these 3 points? Because the opening, the inciting incident, and the first act are closely related, but they're not the same thing. A strong opening makes a promise, a strong inciting incident introduces disruption, and a strong first act builds the engine that carries the weight of the story to come. So, let's break down how to write all 3. A compelling opening, a strong inciting incident, and a first act that earns the rest of the story. Because some writers might see these 3 elements as interchangeable, when actually they serve different functions. Sometimes one of these 3 elements may carry more weight than the others, like you might have a very strong opening, but your inciting incident is more functional. Or you might have a very effective first act overall, even if the opening itself is relatively simple. The goal here is to separate them clearly while also showing how they connect, because they don't all need to stand out equally. What matters is understanding what each one is doing, where the story is strongest, and whether the weaker area is still doing its structural job. So let's start with the opening. Part 1. The opening is a promise, not a summary. The opening tells the audience what kind of story they're entering, what kind of emotional experience they should expect, and what tone, atmosphere, and narrative pressure the story is establishing from the start. So a strong opening usually does one of these 3 things very quickly. It establishes curiosity, it establishes tone, or it introduces some kind of imbalance, contradiction, wound, or pressure that the story will keep developing. And one of the most common mistakes here is trying to explain the story before you've given the audience a reason to care about it. Curiosity needs to come before explanation or full clarity. And that doesn't mean confusion, but controlled curiosity. You want the audience to feel that something meaningful is already present, even if they don't yet understand the full shape of it. So, Incendie, directed by Denis Villeneuve, who also directed Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, Prisoners, and Dune. First of all, what a movie, and it's sometimes considered one of his best films. And Denis Villeneuve is a very accomplished director. The first time I watched Incendie, 30 seconds in, I was already literally leaning at the edge of my seat. So the opening doesn't begin with any narration or any dialogue. It doesn't even start with the main characters. It begins with atmosphere, implied violence, and emotional weight. Even without knowing who the character on screen is supposed to be, even without any context, the scene creates an immediate sense that this story is carrying history, pain, and consequences. The audience understands the tone, the seriousness, and the scale of that emotional burden the story is holding. So that's what makes it a great opening. It's not trying to summarize a story. It's making a promise about the kind of story that this will be. And the twist at the end is absolutely worth the watch. And we can also look at the opening sequence of Little Miss Sunshine. It introduces several characters in the span of a couple of minutes through private habits, small routines, and personal fixations. Olive is absorbed in beauty pageants, Dwayne is committed to silence, Richard is obsessed with success, Cheryl is the one trying to hold the family together, the grandfather is chaotic and indulgent, and the sequence ends with Frank, broken and freshly pulled out of emotional collapse, as the title card Little Miss Sunshine appears over him. And that contrast immediately tells you that this story is going to balance sadness, dysfunction, and warmth at the same time. These aren't random introductory details. They're quick, efficient ways of showing what each character is clinging to, how they see themselves, and what emotional or psychological tension they're already carrying. The opening is almost diagnostic. It's quietly building the family's emotional shape right from the beginning. And quickly, you can also have something like Midsummer. Its pre-title opening is devastating, and it works because it establishes emotional horror before the story moves into its brighter visual setting. Because the characters are going to a setting that takes place only during the daylight. So even though it's a horror movie, there's no darkness or nighttime involved. So the opening shows you grief, dread, dependence, and emotional rupture, especially when you hear Florence Pugh's character's gut-wrenching scream. So even though almost the entirety of the rest of the film later takes place in daylight, the story has already set the emotional terms, and it's already planted the horror. So even if the audience starts to forget, whenever a sinister element seems to reappear, they'll remember the opening and they'll never forget the genre the story is building towards. So that's an important point to distinguish here. The opening doesn't just introduce content. It teaches the audience how to interpret the story, and it tells them what emotional lens to use. So, a practical way to build this is to first decide what the opening is promising. So, what kind of story are you trying to tell the audience they're entering? And is that promise mainly tonal, mysterious, emotional, unsettling, intimate, tragic? Then you choose one thing to foreground immediately. A strong opening usually centers one clear point of focus, like a striking image, a character under pressure, a contradiction, a routine that already feels loaded, or a question the audience immediately asks themselves. Then you create curiosity before giving explanation. Give the audience something meaningful to lean towards before you start clarifying everything else. They don't need the full context yet, but they do need a reason to stay engaged. Make sure the scene feels connected to the rest of the story, because the opening doesn't need to contain the whole plot, but it should feel representative of what the story cares about. Its tone, its pressure, or the kind of conflict at its center. And lastly, you want to avoid neutral openings. If the first scene feels interchangeable, or if its main function is just to deliver information, then it likely isn't creating enough curiosity, tone, or narrative pressure to keep the audience engaged. And a quick test to ask yourself here is, what's the opening teaching the audience to feel or expect? If you remove the scene, would the story lose an important promise? And what question, tension, or emotional pressure is it planting that will carry into the rest of the story? Because again, the opening doesn't have to explain everything, but it should make the audience feel that something meaningful is already in motion. Part 2. The inciting incident is the disruption that activates a story. The inciting incident is the event that disrupts the character's existing reality strongly enough to activate the main story. It introduces a problem, the loss, threat, change, or destabilization that forces movement into the story. In other words, the opening creates engagement, and the inciting incident creates movement. A useful way to test if you've really found your inciting incident is to ask, what changes here? Why can things no longer continue as they were? And what central story question becomes active because of this event? But the inciting incident isn't always the first unusual thing the audience sees. In Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring, the story opens with a brief history of the ring, so the audience already understands that this object carries danger, power, and a long past behind it. Then we see Bilbo leaving it to Frodo, but the actual inciting incident happens when Gandalf tells Frodo that the ring has put him in danger and that people are already looking for it, which means he can no longer stay in the Shire. So the ring turns from being part of an old legend into a personal and immediate threat to the protagonist. In The Hunger Games, the inciting incident happens when Prim is chosen at the Reaping and Katniss volunteers in her place, so the central conflict is activated as we reach the point of no return. And in Knives Out, the inciting incident and opening overlap. We enter the first scene through the maid's routine as she moves through the house, which helps establish the space the story will be taking place in before it turns into a crime scene as she finds Harlan, the patriarch of the family, with his throat slashed. And instead of reacting the way most movies would, with her tray dropping, instead she curses and scrambles to stop everything from falling. And from there, the death activates a plot. Now there has to be an investigation, and the family quickly reveals itself as its own kind of web. A tangled structure of motives, secrets, performances, and competing interests, echoing the way the opening visually threads us through the house before exposing what was hidden at its center. So, how to build an inciting incident? First, you want to define the character's current reality. What pattern, routine, relationship, illusion, or false stability are they living in? You need to establish a clear before so the audience can feel the disruption when it hits. Then decide what actually changes. Not just a thing that happens, but what specifically becomes different now. Is there a new threat, loss, obligation, invitation, discovery, or pressure point? And what new central question does this event create? This is the what now. Make the disruption personal, so this event shouldn't just matter objectively, it should matter specifically to this character's safety, identity, relationship, goals, or emotional wounds. Next, you want to remove the easy option. A strong inciting incident usually narrows a character's ability to stay passive. It makes an action harder, denial less sustainable, or the old normal impossible to maintain. And make sure it redirects the story. After this point, the scenes should no longer feel like they belong to the old version of the story. Even if the characters resist at first, the narrative should now be moving towards a different track. And a quick test to ask here is, if you remove this event, would the real story still take off anyways? If the characters ignored it, could things mostly continue as they were? And does this moment create a new pressure that the rest of the first act now has to build on? If the answer is no, then you probably haven't found your inciting incident yet. Part 3. The first act builds a story's engine. So what is a first act? In a classic 3-act structure, the first act would be the first quarter or first third of the story, but not all stories have 3 acts. So the first act is really the opening movement of the story, the section that takes us from the initial setup to the point where the main conflict has enough pressure, direction, and consequences behind it that the story has fully taken shape. And the opening and the inciting incident are usually part of the first act, the exception being when the opening functions as a prologue or introductory sequence before the main dramatic movement of the story actually begins. So the first act usually includes the opening promise, the disruptive event, and the build-up that turns the disruption into the story's engine. And that's why sometimes the opening or the Inciting Incident is a standout, and sometimes neither one is especially memorable on their own, but the first act as a whole works because of how well it builds momentum, pressure, character dynamics, and establishing future conflict. So the first act isn't just the beginning of the narrative. It's a section that establishes the baseline reality, the main characters and what drives them, the important relationships and fractures, the world's tone, rules, and pressure system, what can be lost, and the development that moves the story into its central conflict. So the first act isn't just setup, it's where you build the tension, investment, and momentum that the rest of the story depends on. So, Arcane Season 1 is cleanly divided into 3 acts, and Act 1 takes up the first 3 episodes, and it works as a whole because what stands out more isn't just one isolated inciting incident, it's a cumulative build of incidents across those first 3 episodes. And I'm going to be focusing on the Zon conflict here. So, what makes the first act stand out is that it appears to be building towards a relatively familiar resolution, and for the uninitiated, let's quickly look at the characters. The story centers around 2 sisters, Vi, the older one who's trying to hold things together, and Powder, her younger sister who's desperate to prove she can help. Vander's their adopted father and the stabilizing figure keeping the peace of the Undercity, and Silco is the initial antagonist who appears to be the looming threat pushing the world these characters belong to into collapse. So when he kidnaps Vander, by episode 3 it feels like the story is heading towards the group rescuing Vander and surviving the night. Given everything we've seen so far, the viewer thinks they know the stakes and the moralities of the characters. But instead, Episode 3 completely overturns that expectation. Characters who feel like they're being set up as important recurring presences die, so Vander and the girl's 2 foster brothers, who have been a significant part of the story so far, just die, gone from the narrative. The disasters caused by Powder, which completely changes the meaning of her insecurity and her need to prove herself. And in the aftermath of these events, Vi seems to abandon her sister, at least through Powder's perspective. So when Silco finds Powder crying all alone, she launches herself into the arms of the only person who seems available to her at that moment. So she ends the act not by being brought back into safety, but by falling into Silco's hands. And instead of doing what the audience expects an antagonist to do, he embraces her and takes her in as his adopted daughter. So the first act doesn't just escalate the conflict, it redefines a story. It leaves the audience asking, what is the story now? Is Powder becoming the antagonist? Is Silco really going to function the way we assumed? And what does this new relationship between them become? And that's a big part of why the first act is so effective. It builds one version of that story, earns the audience's trust in that version, and then ends it by destroying it in a way that takes the audience completely off guard. And the Royal Tenenbaums is also a strong first act example because of how efficiently it sets the stage for the family, their history, and their emotional stagnation. The story presents the characters to the audience in a structured biographical way, as is common with Wes Anderson's stories. But every detail mentioned helps load the emotional architecture of the story, who these people were, what they became, what they failed to become, and where they became stuck. So when the family starts being pulled back together, the story already has shape, tension, and emotional context behind it. And when The Lord of the Rings was adapted into movies, it was split into 3 parts. So you can look at the entirety of the Fellowship of the Ring as a first act. And so, to practicalities, if you want to build a stronger first act, first decide where the first act ends. What moment actually locks the protagonist into the main story? What choice, loss, discovery, or shift closes the door on the old normal? Then establish the baseline before fully breaking it. So what's the character's world, routine, role, relationship dynamics, or false stability at the start? The audience needs to feel what normal was before they can feel what's changed. Introduce the key characters through pressure, not neutral information. Show what they want, what they fear, what role they play in the system, and where the internal or relational friction already is. The first act should start revealing how the characters work internally, and not just stating facts about them. Build the story's pressure system early. So what does this world reward, punish, hide, or demand? What social, emotional, political, or physical forces are already pushing on the characters? And show what can be lost. What relationships, identities, goals, illusions, or forms of safety are at risk? And you want to show the baseline cost early so later consequences feel earned rather than sudden. And finally, make sure the act break changes the story's direction. By the end of the first act, the story should feel redirected. The protagonist may still resist, but they should no longer be standing outside of the main conflict. And a quick test here is, does the audience understand the baseline, so what normal feels like, the key characters and the main pressure points? Do they know what kind of conflict and cost the story is building towards? And by the end of the first act, does it feel like the story has actually been launched? If the answer is no, the first act may be giving information, but it hasn't yet built enough momentum. But we'll see about exceptions to this later down the line. Part 4. How these 3 parts connect and common problems. So to simplify all of this, The opening pulls the audience in, the inciting incident changes the trajectory, and the first act as a whole earns the audience's commitment to the story. When these three elements work well together, they create a chain reaction. The opening raises a question, the inciting incident sharpens the question, and the first act works to make the question costly. So that's the progression, but it's also where a lot of early story problems come from. So let's look at a couple of these common problems and how to solve them. Problem 1. A strong opening that promises the wrong story. Sometimes a first scene is effective in isolation, but it's promising a tone, genre, or emotional experience that the rest of the narrative doesn't actually deliver, kind of like all those trailers that promise the wrong story. Think of Jennifer's Body, for example, or the new Mean Girls trailer that didn't even showcase that it was a musical, but apply that to the opening. And that sort of feeling creates mistrust or disillusionment. So to solve this, you want to make sure the opening is representative. It should accurately signal the tone, emotional temperature, and the kind of conflict the story will actually keep developing. Problem 2. An inciting incident with no real pressure behind it. Something happens, but it doesn't meaningfully disrupt the protagonist's emotional reality, relationships, or future choices. So the story technically starts, but it doesn't feel set in motion. And to solve this, you want to tie the disruption directly to the character's goals, relationships, fears, or sense of safety. The event shouldn't just be objectively important, such as to the world around the characters, but it should change what this character in particular can do, ignore, or hold on to. Problem 3. A first act built from information instead of tension. Information isn't the same thing as momentum. A first act needs friction, pressure, instability, and cost. And to solve it, deliver setup through friction. Let the audience learn through conflict, choices, mistakes, consequences, unstable relationships, and pressure, not just explanation. Problem 4. Rushing too quickly into the plot. The issue is that if the first act doesn't build enough attachment, pressure, and emotional weight, the plot later on can lose impact, or the next act can end up doing too much of the heavy lifting on its own. That doesn't mean that every story needs an especially pronounced or dramatic first act, because some stories are designed to build more gradually across the narrative. So this is something to think about if you specifically want your first act itself to stand out as a strong structural unit. So to solve this, you can slow down just enough to build attachment and establish what can be lost. If the audience doesn't understand the characters yet, the pressure system, or the baseline cost, then later conflict can feel structurally significant but emotionally weak. So these three parts matter because audiences don't commit to stories just because events are happening. They commit because they can feel that those events are meaningful, costly, and connected to something deeper. Now on to the ending takeaways. So in short, your opening should make a promise, your inciting incident should introduce unavoidable disruption, and your first act should build enough character pressure, relational tension, and story momentum so the rest of the narrative feels earned. And a few ending takeaways to keep in mind. The beginning is where the audience decides whether to trust you. The audience decides very early on whether or not they'll care about the story. So the way you start your story has to give them a reason to invest emotionally before they have a reason to put it down. Second, early scenes aren't disposable. The beginning shouldn't be the part the audience is forced to get through, so the story can eventually take off. The beginning is where the story teaches the audience how to consume it and what kind of consequences to expect from it. That's why weak beginnings don't usually stem from just a pacing issue, but more from the inability to make the audience feel why the story should matter to them. Third, your first act reveals how well you understand your own story. A strong first act usually signals that the writer understands what the story is really about. Not just plot events, but the pressure points and emotional core. So the actual elements that give the narrative force. Because if you understand that clearly, the beginning usually becomes much easier to shape. Fourth, a lot of later story problems begin in Act 1. A strong beginning reduces how much fixing the rest of your story has to do. The stronger your opening movement is, the less your second act has to work trying to create investment that should already be there. A lot of pacing problems later in a story are really foundational problems from early on. So the beginning is where you as a writer should create direction, establish pressure, and build the shape of the narrative. And the beginning should make promises a story can actually pay off. Like we've established, one of the most important things a beginning does is make promises. And the more specific those promises are, emotionally, tonally, and structurally, the more satisfying it feels when the story later pays them off. Next, the audience doesn't need full clarity, they need orientation. The audience doesn't need to understand everything immediately, but they do need to feel oriented enough to care, curious enough to continue, and confident enough that the confusion they're supposed to feel is intentional rather than due to poor writing. And lastly, a beginning should create forward momentum. Not because the audience has all the answers, but because they now have enough tension, enough curiosity, and enough emotional investment that they need to see what happens next. So when you revise, ask, What is your opening promising emotionally? What events actually activate the story? What does your first act establish that later conflict depends on? And where does your protagonist become structurally locked into the real story? Because what you're really building in the beginning isn't setup, it's commitment from the audience to keep investing and for the story to follow through on what it has set in motion. And if you reach this point, my name is Augustina or El Greco, and I'll be linking the most relevant videos here. And you're free to subscribe and explore the channel more because I've covered a lot of the topics already. And to my usual subscribers, I'll see you in the next one.